totally. But the first is to extend the lease to the farmer to a 10-year lease so that he can get the cost sharing of funds. And these are the items that we're looking at that would be provisions. We've written some draft language that would be available to the lawyer to help develop this. But what we're looking at is getting cost sharing through the various agencies on grassed waterways, which would be between those fields that you saw, to improve the runoff conditions. There is a pond between the, and I'll just back up here real quickly for you. This pond that sits right here, which gets to be a mud hole. That's what's been watering the cattle, and of course they go in there to cool off and such. It's a spring-fed, it's an eyesore to the park. And of course that has impacts on groundwater. So what we're looking at is getting the cows out of it, and with cost sharing, farmer can bring in water from the commercial water source that's at the county park and pay for his water. But that would supply the cattle with the necessary water, and we can clean up that pond and hopefully be a demonstration to other farmers in the county to clean up.
I'm sorry, where would you get the replacement water?
There's water available at the county park that can be hooked onto and then metered for the farmer. That is, the water lines are there.
I'd rather see the mud hole cleaned up as a usable pond for watering as opposed to nine water.
Well, if he can buy it, it's, and what you're talking about is to pump the water out so that, and that may be an option too.
You'd probably be the first cattle watered off of public water in the state.
The other is to, let me go back, well, actually, I'm gonna go on to, this is what they're looking at as the land. So this would be the pasture land that's currently used, would be continued to use. This area here is overgrown. It has the potential of being pasture 10 years down the road, five years down the road. It's got a lot of scrub. If that is fenced in, it's, the cattle can get in there and graze. They'll slowly graze it back. It does have a lot of trees in there that are, can't think of the word right now, but they'll just keep spreading, and they're a hazard to agriculture. The farmland is still the same. Again, it's a case of improving these waterways in there through practices. The biggest problem with it is the fact that the fence along T-Berry, which actually goes to here, is quite deteriorated and needs replacement. The farmer's not going to invest in boundary fencing, and that is really a responsibility of the county. However, the interior fencing is such that the farmer would do that, such that divide up the pasture for management of rotation, and that way you don't overgraze this pasture land. As I said earlier, you got a lot of farms throughout the area, and that one has been included. The fact that if the land is overgrazed, it doesn't come back, and especially when you get into your hot months, if it's overgrazed, it's gonna start burning roots out as well. I mentioned this, the fence here is bad. The other side of it is, along T-Berry, there's an extensive amount of cedars that have overgrown. And that is a major hazard in the winter to T-Berry Road, causing icing conditions. It's very hazardous for school buses, but that is VDOT responsibility. What we are looking at as part of the option is that the county would replace the fence along T-Berry Road at a cost that I'll explain in a little bit. But instead of going right along the existing fence line here, we would want to bring that fence in with a setback, so that number one, if we bring it in to what is we take out part of the pasture, we're talking maybe 50 feet, 60 feet or so. Put the fence in that area, number one, it'll be of less cost to put the fence in. But number two, that would be an access area, a buffer area, that would be in the long term available for viewing, undisturbed by growth, vegetative growth, viewing of the county farm portion of the battlefield, room for markers, room for any kind of paths and trails that were in the plan to connect the Jordan Run track with the county park and bring those all together. So if we do a setback, we would allow that to continue. I might point out, we have the cemetery here. The other thing that is in existence there is the Tuscarora Trail, which comes down through the wooded area along here right now. Let's see if I missed anything on what we're looking at is that if we apply these best management practices and can improve the productivity of the cattle grazing there, 5%, 10% at the outside. When you do that, that's going to improve the bottom line for the farmer. Now, if we publicize that and demonstrate this to the rest of the county, and we can increase the productivity, get other farmers in the county by Shenandoah County setting the example, we can get other farmers to buy into this and improve their productivity by at least 5%. What is that going to do to the agricultural base of this county? But we're not going to get there unless we set the example. And part of that example is the long-term lease to convince landowners to go into a longer-term lease, and farmers to then buy into the property that they're leasing, because they can have a long-term investment in order to, number one, they can get cost sharing, and improve their own bottom line. And as I mentioned,